Hey guys, I hope all is well. Welcome back to the Truth Talk podcast. I'm back here with my wife Dee.
Hi everybody, I hope you guys are having a great day.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the dark reason YNW Melly is going to beat his case. Let's get right into it. For the last few years, YNW Melly has been locked up awaiting his fate. Melly was arrested back in 2019 for allegedly taking out his two close friends. According to the prosecution, they believe Melly took out his friends due to money reasons. Allegedly, Melly wanted to get rid of his two friends to eliminate the percentage they owned of the YNW brand. Melly started to have a problem with the two, specifically YNW Sack Chaser, who was essentially the head of the group, so they believe Melly took them out in order to free himself from them. The prosecution believes Melly essentially set up his friends one late night while leaving the studio. They claim that Melly planned all this with another close friend, YNW Bortland, who was the driver of the vehicle. They believe Melly got in the car with Bortland, YNW Juvie, and YNW Sack Chaser. Juvie and Sack Chaser sat next and across from him, and once Bortland started to drive off, Melly pulled out a piece, aimed it, and let it go at both Juvie and Sack Chaser. The prosecution then claims that he and Bortland staged the whole thing to look like a drive-by by spraying up the car from the outside. Melly then allegedly had Bortland drive his friends' bodies to the hospital and tried to stage the whole thing with the police. After the authorities looked into Bortland's story, they found so many inconsistencies that they started to investigate it further. This is when Melly was finally arrested, as they found evidence that pointed to Melly being the one who took out his friends. Since 2019, people were wondering if Melly was truly guilty or if he was actually innocent. A few months back, years after his arrest, he would get his day in court, and the world was finally going to see the dark truth about Melly. During this trial, the prosecution laid out plenty of evidence that seemed to clearly point at Melly's involvement. The prosecution showed video footage evidence that proved Melly got into the car with his friends that night. Melly claims he got in the car, but swapped cars shortly after getting on the road in a location he doesn't remember and apparently had no cameras around. The prosecution also presented phone evidence that proved YNW Melly's phone was in the vehicle and in the same location of the crime. Melly's defense claims that that wasn't Melly's phone and that he shared it with his other defendant. The prosecution presented GPS coordinates that followed where Melly went that night, and it showed he was in that car. They also presented text messages that showed conversations with Melly that are clearly suspicious. They even presented bullet trajectory evidence proving the shots came from where Melly was sitting inside of the vehicle. This debunked Melly's side of the defense, as he claimed that the incident was all a drive-by. The prosecution also showed text messages that seemed to point to Melly having a beef with Sack Chaser. With all of this evidence being presented, somehow, Melly wasn't able to be found guilty, and after 9 people voted him guilty and 3 not guilty, it was declared a mistrial. What was interesting about the whole thing is that Melly's mom had come out and lied about the entire situation, claiming that 9 people found Melly not guilty and 3 only found them guilty. It turns out this wasn't the case at all. It was even reported that initially it was 11 people that had found them guilty, all but one person who was already convinced Melly was innocent. One of the other jurors even claims that this person was trying to convince everyone to vote Melly not guilty and eventually convinced 2 other jurors to change their mind. This to me seems strange and clearly points to jury tampering. I don't know how he would have done it, but knowing how rigged the justice system is and how money and connections are what rules everything in the courts, I know it's a possibility. In my opinion, Melly appears 100% guilty. He had beef with his friends and wanted to get rid of them. I also believe that Melly's manager 100K Track has something to do with it as well. And this is something that YNW Juvie's father claims himself. For some reason, all of 100K Track's artists end up either in a box under dirt or inside of a cell. I honestly think he might be playing a part in all of this, from Melly taking out his friends to Melly's mistrial, and also what's been revealed about the prosecution recently. Recently, the prosecutor in Melly's trial, Christine Bradley, was taken off the case after Melly's defense claimed that she did not reveal that their lead investigator had previously been accused of being willing to lie as he gathers evidence, basically claiming that the lead investigator was making up evidence. They claim that someone who worked with the lead investigator overheard the detective asking another deputy to lie about being present at the courthouse when the lead investigator was executing a search warrant he used to take Melly's phone. Now, the defense wants the whole trial thrown out because of it and wants Melly free, even though this doesn't disprove that Melly was guilty of these crimes. Melly knows he is guilty, and it is the reason he has been allegedly accused of witness tampering. On October 4th, Melly was charged with 7 new felonies that were all connected to witness tampering, as they believe Melly was trying to communicate and discourage a witness from working with the prosecution. He is accused of using his blood gang connections to have other inmates communicate with a witness on the outside he is trying to convince to not testify against him. It is believed this witness is Melly's ex-girlfriend and her mother, who obviously seems to know something that Melly doesn't want the prosecution to know. Allegedly, Melly had promised to pay the mother to not testify against him, but when she didn't receive the money, she was going to snitch on him. She ended up getting paid last minute before trial started, and then she changed her tune, working against the prosecution. Melly's defense is claiming that the only reason the prosecution is claiming this is due to retaliation. One thing remains clear to me though, Melly took out his two close friends, a sacrifice for the industry. The fact that Melly is allegedly messing with witnesses and going out of his way to prevent his phone from being used against him, it points to a guilty man to me. I mean, you tell me.
I definitely have to agree with you. I do think he's guilty as well, especially with all this recent stuff that's coming out about him now. And I think this whole situation that his defense attorney brought up about the lead investigator is just another way for them to have the advantage of setting him free. Because now that he brought that up, they've actually replaced the lead prosecutor with another person, and she has asked for more time to go over this case because they gave her this case with a short notice. And I definitely think that his defense attorney bringing up this whole thing about the lead investigator with hiding evidence is just another way to try to get him free. Because now that they have done this, they have been able to change the prosecutor on the other side to a person who has little information about what's going on in this whole entire case. And then the fact that he went so hard to reach out to somebody to stop her from testifying. And then when he had that whole entire man come in there saying that he was in the car that he had gotten in after he left the studio, but he was asleep, so he never really saw him, just to try to clear his name, also was just another red flag that makes it sound like he is just guilty in this whole entire situation. He's using everything he can find to try to cover up his step.
You know, that man right there that went on the stand and claimed that Melly got in the car, I think that made the whole situation worse because they want us to believe that this man picked up Melly off the side of the road in an area where there's no cameras, in an area that they themselves don't even remember. How does that make any sense, and how could that be used as credible information? If you can't tell me where you picked Melly up and we have no camera footage, how do we know that they truly picked up Melly? And it just doesn't make any sense. The prosecution and the authorities are pretty sure that the crime happened from within the vehicle. The bullet trajectory evidence clearly proves that the crime started from where Melly was sitting. So they know that someone was in that backseat and did it from that backseat. And they know that the person who got into that backseat was YNW Melly. So that speaks for itself. And then the fact that Melly has been trying to disprove that this is his phone. Just think about that. It's not like Melly is saying, oh, you can take my phone. I'm not guilty. I didn't do anything. You can see that I have nothing to do with this. He is purposely trying to hide the phone because the phone is obviously going to prove that he had something to do with this. Now, in my opinion, what I think that's going on, I think that this is all being done theatrically. I feel like Melly's going to be let go. And the reason for this is because Melly took the Masonic oath. We can see that Melly is a Masonic puppet. He's one of those artists that since the beginning has been showing Masonic imagery. And we also saw his Murder on My Mind music video that kind of foreshadowed this whole thing. I've already spoken about this many times. You think it's a coincidence that a year before he's a superstar, he makes this song about having to sacrifice his friend and that he had to do it, he didn't want to. And literally a year later, he meets his exact fate where he's being accused of taking out his friends and his career is now reaching new heights. Right before he went to prison, he had worked with Kanye West. We know Kanye West is one of the biggest Masonic puppets in the industry. We know in order for those two artists to have worked together, Melly would have had to be a part of the same alliance that Kanye is a part of. Right before Melly was picked up and sent to jail, he had worked with Kanye. He had climbed the top of the industry. This to me shows that what he did was ritually based and he knew he had to do this and he did it because he wanted success and fame. That's what that music video shows us. If we look at the Murder on My Mind music video, it clearly shows not only YNW Melly doing voodoo, but it also shows YNW Melly talking with the serpent, which represents him making a deal. We have to remember, this all goes back to Adam and Eve, the serpent in the garden. When Lucifer presented himself to Eve, he presented himself as a serpent. This is why we always see the representation of these artists holding the serpent or being with the serpent. This is because they're representing the artist selling out, the artist making the deal, the artist accepting the enlightenment, just like we saw with Adam and Eve. Eve took the apple and bit and was now like a god. Same thing with these artists. They take what the devil offers them and the devil makes them as a god on earth with everybody worshiping them. This is exactly what this represents. I think that this is all connected. And I highly believe that Melly and 100K Track are going to make sure that they get out of this. Because just by looking at 100K Track's record, we can tell that there's something suspicious with him. You understand? We've already spoken about 100K Track several times on this channel. And I believe he's the one that got this evidence tampering situation put out there, you know? He has the money to pay people off to make them do what he wants. So I would not be surprised if he has somehow found a way to pay some people in this case off, you know? Especially when we think about that juror. They claim that that juror was confident that Melly was innocent and that they were trying to convince other people to think Melly was innocent. When do you see that? That's clearly jury tampering. And in my opinion, they should be investigated for this, but we know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, you know, there's just too many of these incidents, especially with his ex-girlfriend's mother telling the prosecutor that he had done something. And then when she was on trial for it, recanting her statement and saying that she has no recollection of ever saying that. And now, like I said, his defense attorney was able to convince the judge to change the lead prosecutor. And this woman who has been put on there doesn't know anything about this case, thus giving him the higher hand of winning. And when she asked for more time, because she did ask for more time because she'd only had 48 hours with the case, they told her that he has a rush trial because this trial has been going on so long that they were going to go ahead and continue with getting the jury and going forth with the retrial. So now she knows little about this case, and his defense attorney has the higher advantage at this point. I definitely feel that they are doing everything in their advantage to set this man free, which is sad, but I feel like it's gonna happen, and they're just gonna say that this time that he's been in there is technically his time served, maybe a year even more. But I agree with you. I feel like they're going to set him free, even though all the facts are there stating that he has done this. All the stuff he has done in between to get people to recant their statements, not to show up, to lie on stand about incidents that probably did not happen. They're definitely going to set him free.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that Juvie and Sack Chaser aren't going to get justice, and the parents aren't going to see justice with this one. It's simply a situation where money and connections, and we know the Masons run the justice system. The biggest judges, the people in power are all Masonic puppets, and it's a rigged system. And a person like Melly who took the oath, who has the money, who's favored, who's owned by the industry, they're going to get him out of there, and this is just going to make him grow even bigger. You know, they're going to make him a bigger star using this. He's going to be even bigger than many other rappers because a lot of people know he actually did it. A lot of people know that he took out his two close friends. And the sad, disgusting thing is that a lot of people are praising him because of it. This is where our world has gotten to, where violence has become glamorized. It's become a part of making someone special or making someone better than others. If you caught a body, if you're really in the streets, if you're really evil or a criminal, people are going to praise you for it. And that just shows you what the manipulation has done to our people, what the brainwashing for centuries has done to our people that are convinced now that praising an evil man like Melly is the right thing because he's a gangster, because he's real. But at the end of the day, I don't even think that that would be considered really gangster, taking out your two close friends in a sneaky way that they weren't even expecting, you know? Like, I think that's the opposite of a gangster. I think that's kind of a coward, you know? But at the end of the day, Melly's gonna face the same privilege like Snoop Dogg did in his trial back in the 90s, you know? It was clearly evident that Snoop Dogg was guilty. But they let Snoop Dogg go because he was already a part of the industry. He had taken the oath. He had been showing this Masonic imagery. And that's why you see Snoop Dogg to this day as one of the top personalities in hip-hop. It all speaks for itself. And sadly, it's disturbing how corrupted the industry is. I want to know what you guys think below. I want you guys to tell me if you think he's innocent or guilty. I personally myself think he's guilty, and I think 100K Track is definitely behind the entire situation. I'm going to say allegedly because I have to, but I truly feel that 100K Track was the one who told Melly to take his two close friends out because he's the manager. Him telling him to sacrifice his two close friends to the industry worked in two ways for him. You know, it helps him get initiated, it helps him get into the industry, but it also takes out two people that were taking from 100K Track's money because they were technically managing Melly before, because Melly was technically signed to Sack Chaser. So that right there speaks for itself. I feel that if the father of Juvie is saying this, it's because he knows something behind the scenes, something that was going on. And he also claimed that Melly and Sack Chaser had got into a disagreement and had a fight and all this. So that could also be a reason, you know? But at the end of the day, we're just going to have to wait and see. That's it for this one. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for stopping by, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Goodbye, everybody. I hope you guys have a great day.